Hello again, back in the shed. Been a long time away. I was overseas for about a month and a bit. So yeah, back on the Cerbera. Where I'm at with the motor is all cleaned up. Now, as usual, things aren't going perfectly smoothly. I had a quick, somewhere along the line, I've ended up with a different size alternator belt. The one I've got, the one that was in it is the 432, PJ 432 170J. That's the right one. But this, well, I don't know if you can see it there. She's, yeah, very second hand. But the one that I've got as a replacement, for some reason, is a 457. So if we look there, when you go like so, it's actually going to foul the intakes. Now, the issue I had previously with this was that with the shorter belt, with the 432 belt, it would hit the intake on this side. So I've made a careful modification to stop that from happening. So I've just ordered another belt, but that's obviously going to be here for a while, but I'm going to press on regardless. So today's mission, we're going to take these apart and well, I've got to clean them up to some extent anyway. I mean, I kind of got to do it. They've really got to match. They've really got to go back to the sort of bare aluminium and clear coat them to match the motor. It's going to look silly having dirty faded paint on there. So it's just going to be a little tricky to get these things apart, to blast them. So anyway, here I go. Alright, so here's where we're at. Here is where we are at. Got the motor off the stand, sitting on the bench. Got my rear main seal housing in, and right now I'm just going through. I've just sprayed some brake cleaner in each one of these threads. Just going to blow them out, clean them out. Probably run a tap through each of these threads. Yeah, and then I'll start looking. I'll grab the gearbox. Gearbox is over here, so I'll probably just clean this bench off, lay out the gearbox, where is it? The bell housing. Get the flywheel cleaned up, get it on. I'm thinking I'm going to reuse the clutch that I pulled out of it. I did ask on the forums about the thickness, and well, it's £900 for a new one. So, and this one had no problems, and it looks to be pretty clean. Well, it's got plenty of meat left on it, so, and I believe I can change that fairly easily in the car. Correct me if I'm wrong. These are the intakes. These were spray painted black, and it's kind of a job I've been putting off for a while. So I spent most of the afternoon yesterday blasting these clean. So now they've just been given a coat of clear. It's not perfect, but it's oh, see, I missed a spot there. Don't look at that. But yeah, I just want to keep with that look overall on the motor, just the sort of brushed aluminium and clear coat look, even though this is covered in grubby fingerprints at the moment. So yeah, it's clean out these threads and get the gearbox and everything on the table. Alright, so here's where I'm at. Got the motor up on the bench. Got my flywheel on. These are all torqued up. I'm actually quite pleased with myself. I cleaned this up on the neighbour's lathe. I took like 6 or 7 thou off this surface and this surface. Got the clutch here. Now, because I don't have a clutch alignment tool, I'm going to try and basically use the gearbox as a clutch alignment tool, which should be a laugh a minute. Get the clutch on there, get it torqued down, then I pull the gearbox off. Then I'm going to have a look at the bell housing here and remove the old slave cylinder, and I have to go in, you may have heard of this, the Tilton master cylinder, well, slave cylinder, sorry. And to go with that, I've got that black line going on again. Just going to get away from this artificial light. To go with that, I have this hole saw, which apparently is the right size. Because basically you got to take out the whole centre of the bell housing. Which is going to make me a little nervous, but that's what you got to do to fit this thing. And the idea is the Tilton is just sort of, I mean, this thing is it's for a small block Chev on a T5 gearbox, so and it's made by Tilton, so it should be pretty reliable. The various TVR slave cylinders, the race-proof cylinder, they're not known to be super reliable, and I mean that's what failed on mine. So alright, give me a minute of wrestling with this thing, and we'll see how we go. Alright, so got the bell housing apart. I did actually try and give this a clean, but it's like the clutch dust was just so ingrained it didn't really work. But if you have a look at these, I don't know if other cars are like this, but you look at this, this is your clutch bleed line, and that's, yeah, that comes out the top, and then sort of down the side here, that's your pressure line, but it comes in, that's the line coming in there. A bit hard to see, hang on, I'll put some light on there. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that, and that's your bleed line there, that's your pressure line there. So the actual bell housing itself is it's like a sealing surface, which I'm not sure is the greatest idea. But anyway, because I mean, you know, you can't just replace the slave cylinder, you've got to actually ensure that the bell housing surface is up to scratch, which I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not so sure if that's a good idea, but that's, if you look at this is the cylinder that I pulled out, and I think it's this one here that's the problem, this O-ring here, and you can just sort of, there's a lot of sort of gunk built up on it. I mean, look at that there, you can barely see the O-ring, there's that much crap over the top of it. I'm also maybe I'm wrong and everyone else is right, but I'm not real keen on the idea of running brake fluid in these things. I mean, it shouldn't get that hot that you need to protect against boiling or whatever. I don't know, but with my one I'll probably just run mineral oil with the new job. Now if we go and get our this bad boy here, this is meant to go on that. That it does actually fit. I'll have to give this section a clean up and some wet and dry, but that basically slides on there, and you look, you see you've got the little tab there with a hole that lines up with one of these bolts. Then you've got this bolt here that you replace one of them with. That and it's got this shaft here that well, that little tab can just sort of slide on. I don't think it really moves much, but it allows it a little bit of movement as the clutch wears. Yeah, I've got the clutch on. Yeah, I think I'm going to have a hell of a time putting this back on. I don't know if I've heard the TVRs have a different spline count to every other T5 on the market, but I may end up looking for a tool, I don't know. But yeah, obviously, while we're over this side, that's the back of your bell housing, and that's not going to fit in there. Well, actually, I won't go close, but I've then got to find room for the for these hydraulic lines as well. So everyone else who's done this says you got to cut this center section out. So yeah, that's what I'll do now. Alright, so I'm in the other shed now. Yeah, got the hole saw set up. I'm going to have a crack at this. Now I know I did say earlier on, part of the reason I hadn't recorded a video in a while I was overseas is because I was overseas. Yeah, that's true, but then I also bought another motorbike. Picked this bad boy up from the auctions, $4.5 grand. Look at those carbies. Whoa. Of course, I don't actually fit on it. My knees hit these intakes, so yeah, she needs a bit of work. I don't know what the story is with it. Some of you might not like this little distraction, but yeah, someone spent a heap of money on this thing and then just let it sit in the sun. Like this exhaust is brand new. Like, I mean, it doesn't even have a stone chip in it. These carbs, like if you do a Google for them, they are like ridiculous expensive. They're worth more than I paid for the whole bike. And when I took the clutch cover off just to check the clutch, it's got this fancy pants clutch thing, but the fork seals are gone. The fuel pump is dead. The fuel tank was full of just rust, like gravelly sludge at the bottom of the tank. You can sort of see some of it there. That's actually good. I've actually filled the whole bottom of that tray up. But anyway, all right, I'm gonna have a crack at. Actually, I'll show you. I'll just set the camera here. You can have a laugh. Alright, so it's a couple of days later, back in the shed. Cut my hole in the bell housing. Yeah, my U-Butte hole saw that I was quite pleased with. Yeah, ran for like a minute or two and then started slowing down. So if you have a look here, right in there, you can see that I after it had made a sort of a circular mark, I just went along that mark and just drilled a heap of holes just to try and take the load off the hole saw. Yeah, it takes a lot of power to drive a big hole saw like that, and yeah, my drill press was struggling. So now I've got room. Let me drag this over. Yeah, my new U-Butte slave basically got to sit. Yeah, she's got to sit in there somewhere. So as you can see, I'm going to have some issues with where I've got to run the hoses, so I may be busting out the drill and drilling a few holes here, a few extra holes. So before I do that, I may actually jump online, jump on piston heads and sort of reread the threads of the written by the people who've already done it, and yeah, see how they did it and come up with some sort of a plan. But for now, I'm just going to measure. So what you got to do is, I should have cleaned this up with some wet and dry. Here's some I prepared earlier. Yeah, because what you got to do is basically measure from the if you look in there, you can see the fingers of the clutch, of the clutch spring, and you basically got to compress this all the way and then work out where this has got to sit, so it's got sort of like 4 or 5 mil clearance between this face and the clutch fingers in there, and that's kind of your that's where you set it in its neutral position, and you have this here that sort of screws in and out to set your distance, and it's got to sit with these hoses on the top side, or else you won't be able to bleed it. Alright, so I'm going to go and have a bit of a read, have a look at how other people have done their clutch lines, and be back shortly. Alright, so here we are again. Yeah, so I've got the slave on. And you can see if you look straight on with this, for some reason my bolt holes here they're not perfectly flat. So I'm guessing this is going to be the bleed line here on the left. That'll be the supply line, which is yeah, a bit annoying. I was hoping to have it dead flat so I could just pick whichever one, but now I'm going to have to sort of mark which one's which. No big deal. Alright, so I've worked out that from this face here to the fingers, I'm looking at about 85 mil, and from this face here to here, I'm looking at about 81 mil. Now that's a bit more clearance than Tilton recommend. They recommend about 125 thou. But then when you actually move that thing, I won't do it again. I probably shouldn't do it while it's, well, I don't think it'll be dry. I'm sure it'll have some lubricant in there, but yeah, I don't want to be moving it backwards and forwards, but it's got like 30 mil of movement there, so yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine. I'd rather have a little bit too much clearance, or a millimetre or two more clearance, just in case my measurements skew if. Alright, so now I'm just gonna, I looked at the Aid, I think his name is, the blue Cerbera, that he basically drilled holes through the through the bell housing, because I was like him. I like the idea of just cutting a couple of channels here, but it's because of this distance from here to here, that's going to be an almighty big slot. So yeah, I might just do what he did and just drill one big hole there. I might even have a rubber grommet handy to seal it up, but yeah, I think I'll just do that, and yeah, unless I can think of anything different. Alright, I'll see you after I've drilled the hole. Alright, so she's in. Now, as you can see, I've kind of got these jaggedy edges left from when I cut the guts out. So we'll have to give a bit of a clean up, but I don't know, I'm thinking I might put 2 holes, just one there and one about there. Yeah, they're obviously going to have to be at least that diameter. Yeah. Alright, that's what I'll do. Alright, so she's all in and mounted. As you can see, the edges there are a little bit rough, but I cleaned them up a bit. Just because of the way the angle worked out on this, you can see it's, yeah, that's the bleed line there. Sorry, no, that's the pressure line. But I've got some rubber grommets on the way that should centralise that perfectly. So yeah, now I've got to try and yeah, get it onto there. Alright, wish me luck. Alright, well, I can't fathom trying to do this, how hard it would be to do this job under the car while trying to bench press the gearbox. I was sort of wrestling with the thing and then I remembered, hang on, I've got a hoist here, so I'll just lift it up. I think all I've got to get is the pilot, the snout into the pilot. You can see I've got a bolt in on this side, a bolt in on that side, and no, I'm not using the bolts to pull the two together. Just sort of acting as dowels to try and locate it. But just for your viewing pleasure, you can watch me trying to have a go at this. Alright. Yeah, I'm going to have to struggle with this for a bit longer. So close. That's got to be in there. That pilot's got to be in there. I'm wondering if it's just because I remember that pilot bearing was really tight fit with the end of the shaft, so I'm wondering if I know this is not how you're meant to do it, but won't use the electric. Or, oh. That's not much more than finger tight. That's not bottoming out on anything. But I do, honest to God, remember that the pilot bearing, when I had the bell housing off, was really tight on the end of the shaft, and that's, it must be in there. See that there? It's barely more than finger tight. Gaps even on both sides. So it's got to be going in there. The penetration of that shaft into the pilot bearing is it's about 5 times what that gap is. So it's got to be in there. And these, see, I'm barely touching that. I'm not wrecking it, I'm honest. Look at that. Yeah, I would not like to do this under the car. I think if it ever comes to it, it'll be on the hoist. I'm going to buy one of those transmission jacks. See? Look at that. Alright, so that's just about done. My next step, I'm going to have a look at is starter motor. So, I'll get back to you. Alright, so she's all together. Now, I think I know why it was so hard to go the last few millimetres. Because I did a test fit with no clutch, no bell housing, and the snout of the crank pushed into the bearing, but it was quite snug. It was a tight fit. And I've then pulled that apart, put the clutch in place, aligned the clutch plates with the end of the gearbox, bolted the clutch up, and did what it did to the bell housing, put the bell housing back on. I've gone to go again, but in the meantime, I'd basically just took a finger load of bearing grease and put it in that pilot bearing, because it had grease on it, but I thought, well, you know, a little bit more won't hurt. So I'm guessing what I experienced then was the shaft at the, what do you call it, spigot shaft? I don't know. The shaft at the end of the gearbox is basically trying to compress that grease, which is why it was all centered up, and that I just couldn't push it on there. But when I pulled it in with the bolts, yeah, it just squeezed on in there. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it anyway. Let's see what happens. Alright, on to the next mission, the starter motor. Now this starter motor is working perfectly. Never had trouble turning it over, you know. And then when I pulled it apart, like you can see at the end there, that's the little bit where your power goes on. There was a bolt sort of half pushed on there, but the actual power wire was just hanging on it. It was just sort of, you know, cocked sideways, and that was all that was grabbing. So I'm going to have a look, see if I can, yeah, I've got to do something about that. So I'm wondering if I can't get a suitable die and just tap it for the next thread down. Because I figure if it was working fine the way it was set up, then it should work fine, just with a slightly smaller nut on the end and a washer. So yeah, I'll give that a go, and then I'm going to see. I do have here my plate. But actually, this is something that's sort of, you know, there's been a bit of discussion on forums and whatnot about this. Is, you know, if you don't run this, it'll destroy itself. I just wanted to actually measure the depth of like what the clearance is between the teeth. You know, the tip of this tooth, the tip of these teeth here, and the bottom of the ring gear teeth there. So I just wanted to actually sort of measure that and see what it is in my example, without the spacer, and then see if we want to run the spacer, don't run the spacer, or run a bigger spacer. So yeah, alright, so there we go. Alright, so I've done a few measurements here on the starter, and with a rough, well, just putting the thing there just as a give you a rough idea. That distance from the tip, I didn't actually measure it like that, but from the tip to this flat surface here, we're looking at about 12.5 mil. And then from this flat surface down to the bottom of the teeth, we're looking at 14.5. So about 2 mil clearance, which is the total depth of the teeth. We're at about 6 mil. So 2 mil. You could probably almost go without the spacer. The spacer's, hang on, what's my spacer? Yeah, spacer's 1 mil. So that'll take it to 3 mil. Now it's hang on. Yeah, so I might just leave the spacer there. I mean, it's tightening that clearance up, I don't think it doesn't, the risk isn't worth the reward, especially since it's been running fine anyway. So I might just leave that be, bolt it back on with my stock spacer. And now, well, it's Easter Friday here, so my neighbour over the road, he's got a heap of dies, taps and dies, so I'll have to go and see him, see if I can get a die the next size down. Try and put a thread on that. So what have I got there? 7 mil. 7 mil, so that might end up like an M6 thread. Yeah, it's pretty small. Oh well, I'll see how I go. If I can make it happen, I'll make it happen. But if I do have to get a new starter motor, well, yeah, see what happens. I might, yeah, see this? Is that going to come off? Yeah, I might try and see if I can tap that thread with it still on there. This strikes me as one of those things, if you pull it apart, it may never go back together again. So if I can find a nice simple solution, I'll just stick with that. Right, I'll go and see if my neighbour's awake. We'll See if we can get a die, an M6 die. Alright, so I've had a bit of a crack with the starter motor. I did manage to get a thread of sorts on there. I was kind of hoping when I took this off that maybe I could sort of dismantle the whole thing and I could just machine an entire new lug out of copper or whatever. Yeah, but it's just kind of, yeah, it's all one solid item, everything's pressed together. So I had to sort of grind this down a little bit to get it thin enough just to get the tap or the die, it's a die nut, to get that on there. I cut the thread, but then you probably can't see that there, it's a little bit of looseness there. Well, that wasn't there before I put the grinder on it, and I'm thinking it's heated up, it's melted up whatever plastic that's pressed into. So yeah, I think I might go online and start looking for replacement starter motors. So I'm trying to keep these videos shorter, so I'm going to end it there and hopefully get it up shortly, and by then I'll still be looking for a starter motor. Alright, so see you next time.